is what I'm getting into. Make sure that they can make farm visits, and yeah, absolutely find them before you actually need them. Where are you going to get your feed from? Do you have a lot of customers when they want pastured pork? They're also looking for organic feed, non-GMO feed, maybe corn and soy free feed. So research the places that you're going to be able to get that and for a good price. Sources of bedding and straw, or bedding, so straw, hay, wood chips. Where are you going to get those things? Transport, truck and a trailer. You don't have to own that, but surely make sure you've got that, who you're going to borrow that from, or who you can hire to haul your livestock for you. And then also get a mentor or three. Organizations like Marble Seed or FACT, they do nationwide mentorships, and my mentors have been just so invaluable to me. My favorite is to get two mentors who disagree with each other, and then get them all in the same room and let them duke it out, and then you will learn so much from that. And they oftentimes have a great time too. Okay, and so what model is right for you? There's a couple common models of pasturing hogs, pasture finishing hogs. So there's the fully pastured model, and then there's the wagon wheel hub model. So obviously the fully pastured model, you've got your fence, you've got your pigs, you've got your food, your water, your shade and shelter, and then every time you want to rotate your pigs, and you are going to want to rotate your pigs, you just move the whole setup. And then there's the wagon wheel hub, which we'll cover in a minute. So here's a look at the fully pastured model. When we started, we did the wagon wheel hub on a very small scale, then we moved to the fully pastured model, and then we actually moved back to the wagon wheel hub a few years ago. But when we were doing this, so you had bulk feed, shade and shelter, more shade and shelter, and then if you can see back here, there's actually more shade and shelter because pigs can't sweat, they need shade and shelter. Here's our water, here's the water tank. Yeah, not as lightweight as say a ruminant. You know, ruminants can thrive with some fencing and some water and salt and mineral, and they're good to go. So pigs just need a lot more stuff. Again, a downside of the fully pastured model is that, say you've got five inches of rain in the forecast, or even half an inch of rain in the forecast. Pigs are little rototillers, and so if you don't have a way to take them off of pasture, this can happen really quickly. And some folks will say, well, just move them really quickly. The problem with that is if you get a lot of rain, there's no amount of moving. Like even if you move them hourly, there's no amount of moving that you can do to keep them from really rooting up a pasture. Also, I'm sure we all know when soil is this wet, you don't want to be driving on that, and you don't want to be taking your tractor out here or your side-by-side to pull stuff like this, because that is just ruining that chunk of the pasture. Some folks would just say, well, just wring their noses. And to that I say, okay, if you are willing to, every week while you have pigs, burn the tips of your fingers to the point where it's painful, where every time you try to touch something, then I say, then you can wring the noses of your hogs. That's kind of the equivalent. I mean, pigs live their entire lives through their noses and their sense of smell and their ability to root. And to take that away from them, it's just cruel in my opinion, even if it makes them a little easier to manage. And oftentimes, even if you don't have a strong opinion on the matter, oftentimes your customers will. So I would say avoid that. So yeah, a lot of pros and cons with the fully pastured model. It's really easy entry for beginners. Works great with small numbers. Some people do use it successfully with really large numbers of hogs. I'd look up J&L Green Farm. He's down in, I believe, Virginia. And he does it with hundreds, if not thousands of pastured hogs. And he's really got it dialed in. And he definitely makes it work. It's extremely mobile, especially if your pigs are trailer trained. You can even take it between different farms, the model. It can also fit between rows of trees if you're trying to do some agroforestry practices like silvopasture or alley cropping. A lot of cons we've found, and a lot of cons that have actually inspired us to switch away from it. Use so much more bedding, and then every time you're moving your hogs, you're just sort of leaving bedding in a pile there, and oftentimes that kills the pasture where it is. It's harder to compost it. Way more labor, way more labor, maybe 10 times more labor, because you're moving all of that stuff, at least once a week, if not more. Potential for huge amounts of soil disturbance and compaction. We've covered that. It's much harder to keep the pigs really comfy. Pigs are not as hardy in the heat as they are in the cold. My pigs really don't like they don't like it when it's more than 65 degrees. So if you're out in the middle of an open pasture and you've got an 80, 90 degree day, oof, you better make sure that there is more than enough shade for each pig. And because pigs can die of heat exhaustion and heat stress just like in a blink of an eye. I worry less about the pigs in the cold weather for that reason, because since they can't sweat and cool off with the wind. I think it's a lot more dangerous because you're moving heavy objects on really uneven ground, because the pigs will make it uneven ground, and it can require much higher horsepower equipment for moving all that stuff. So what we've switched to over time is the wagon wheel hub or model, or some people call it the home base model. It's inspired by the Rodale Institute's hog facility, and essentially here is sort of an idealized version. So you've got your sacrifice area that you've got that deep bedded with wood chips, and you make sure that this isn't just a mud hole. You've got their shade, shelter, food, water, everything that they need to be comfy. And then you move the pigs using mobile electric fencing around that sacrifice area. Here's what it looks like at the Rodale Hog Facility. And then this is our farm. So this is sort of, again, an idealized version of what we do. So we joke that ours is less of a wagon wheel hub, and if you tilted this 90 degrees, it's more of a hot air balloon. So here's our central hub, and then we use electric fencing to make a laneway, and then we graze the pigs wherever we need to. Here's what it looks like in practice. So again, here is our wagon wheel hub, and then here's that laneway, and then here is the electric netting, and then we incorporate pastured egg-laying chickens into it as well. Here's a screenshot from one of our creeper cams. Another great thing about the wagon wheel hub is that you can monitor your pigs a lot easier. If your central wagon wheel hub has Wi-Fi, we extend it out from the house and then install cameras just to make sure that everybody's cozy, and just the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up is I can check the pigs. Last thing at night, just to make sure that everyone's good. So yeah, we've got tons of bedding. We've got automatic waters in the back. Our feeders, each of these holds 2 tons of feed, and so I never move these feeders. The feed truck just backs up, delivers our feed 4 tons at a time right into these, and the pigs have access to it 24/7. And then out here is where you can see that's their pasture. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever move away from this model again. It's just the pros outweigh the cons. Another thing that you can't see is I also have a chute on this side to work the pigs either onto a trailer that I can back up right over here, and we also have an isolation pen for any sick ones too. Here it is from the other side. Also, I want to talk about the lobby. When we have a forecast of 5 days of rain or wet weather, enough that it's puddling, we let the pigs hang out in this outdoor area, what we call the lobby. So they're not out on pasture because it's too wet and they would just destroy it, but they still do have the entire wagon wheel hub and this additional sacrifice area. So they're still outside rooting around, getting sunshine and fresh air. Also, you don't have to have a big permanent building to do this. You can do this on a very small scale. This is our very small wagon wheel hub that we did with those first 10 pigs on pasture. I found these porta huts for free in a neighbor's fence line, and then just simple water, simple trough for feed. As you can see, it does get very denuded, so that's why it's a sacrifice area. But then yeah, we just We used hug or combo panels and T-posts, and then just open it up, and it worked great. So obviously, I'm a little biased. There's a lot of pros versus the cons in the wagon wheel hub model. So primarily, you are able to keep the pigs off of your ground when it's wet. And wet is going to be different for everybody, but for us, it's when I can go out and when just walking around, it's squelching mud anywhere in the pasture. So it'd be like hugging for a ruminant. So much less labor, so much less labor, less bedding too, and the bedding that we do use gets composted. So I can add some in areas that are getting a lot of manure and urine, and then I can scoop that up and actually intentionally compost it as opposed to just leaving it out in the pasture. You could probably do a wagon wheel hub without really any sort of equipment since you're not moving your feeders and you're not moving your waters. So we do this, now that we have this model, we do use a tractor with a brush hog behind it to mow fence lines, and but then you're just walking around with your fencing. It's so much easier for surprises, both your surprises and theirs. You know, say if you break your arm all of a sudden and you're the main farmer on your farm, it's so much easier to close the pigs into the wagon wheel hub, the home base, and then you don't have to worry about them because you know they're comfy, you know they're cozy, they've got food and water. It's so much easier than quick training in somebody else who knows how to move electric fence or monitor electric fence. Um, Also say if it's easier if there's a pig surprise. So you see a pig out on pasture who's limping or has some sort of injury. You herd the pigs back into the wagon wheel hub, and you close the gate, and then you can more easily sort that pig off into your hospital pen that's adjoining, or maybe you sort it onto a trailer to take it to the vet, or just anything. Maybe you take it to your cull butcher. Um, all of that stuff is really hard to do when you're out on in a fully pastured model and you only have electric fence. My husband one time was helping me, and we were trying to sort a pig onto the trailer to get it some help, medical attention, and it backed up into the electric fence and gave it such a shock that it then bolted. It flipped my husband over the sorting boards and ran off, and I actually don't think we were ever able to get it on that trailer. So just much more difficult when you have surprises. Also, yeah, bulk feed is an option, a much easier option, and that'll save you a ton of time and money. Definitely some cons. So you do get the compaction and bare ground in those higher traffic areas. We'll go back, I'll show you that. So in this area, however, you're not getting the same kind of compaction you would if you're moving all of that stuff around on the pasture, because those would be areas of high compaction as well. They do have exposure to soil with potentially higher parasite egg counts. There's a question mark there just because I've got a lot of questions about pigs and parasites. We're doing an on-farm trial right now comparing chemical dewormers and all natural dewormers. And the more I learn about pigs and parasites, the less I am sure about them just as a whole. That's a whole other presentation. But yeah, I'll put a question mark there. It can be a lot less mobile. Obviously, if you're installing some sort of, if you're building a permanent building, or maybe you are even building a little sacrifice area with T-posts and cattle panels, that's harder to move than say just electric fencing. A pro that I didn't put on here, you need so much less fencing because when you are doing a fully pastured model, you gotta have at the very least, enough fence for 2 full pastures. Because when you're moving from one into another, you need enough fence for both. Here, you just take them off a pasture, close them into the wagon wheel hub, entirely take down your fence and set it up in a new spot. Another pro of the wagon wheel hub is that with the fully pastured model, you really need to do sequential grazing, so like they really need to go from one pasture to the pasture right next to it, unless you build a laneway in between pastures that are far away. With the wagon wheel hub model, you take it completely down, and then you set up another new pasture in the laneway wherever you want. So that can just be a much more nimble way of grazing your ground. A con, less mobile, and then also fly and manure management is definitely, you're going to have a lot more flies just because you're not fully moving the pigs from one area to another. And unless you're cleaning out the barn every single day, the flies can build up a little bit. So that's sort of our learning curve right there. Steve Dybel from Wisconsin at Golden Bear Farm, he has this mobile wagon wheel hub. Highly recommend checking him out. He's got these custom-made panels that are really, really fantastic. And he's also just another person who I really admire in the pastured pig world. So finding feeders, let's talk about the pigs themselves. So I know it's a little sacrosanct, but don't worry about the breed at first too much. I know they get excited. They see some video on YouTube about maybe coonies or American guinea hogs or Idaho pasture pigs, and those are going to be a lot more expensive to start with, and all three of those are much slower growing pigs. And when you're first getting started, you want to just know, do I like pigs as a creature? What I would mostly focus on when you're looking for breeds is just lard breeds versus meat breeds. And so meat breeds are like Hampshires, Yorkshires, Berkshires. Just make sure that they're a bacon pig versus a lard pig like a Mangalitsa, Cooney, American guinea hog, that are going to be slower growing and have a lot more lard versus meat. Bigger feeder pigs is better. A lot less can happen, stress affects a 60-pound pig to a 100-pound pig a lot less than, say, a just newly weaned 30-pound pig. Pink and white pigs are a little risky because pigs can get very sunburned very quickly. We actually don't mind doing pink and white pigs from our feeder pig supplier, but he's been culling really hard over the years to make sure that his pigs are hardy and don't get sunburned. I cannot say this next one enough. Cheap is expensive. Cheap is expensive. If you see some really smoking deal on a bunch of pigs that somebody wants to get rid of, ask yourself, what's wrong with these pigs? Am I going to save $1 here, but then each pig is going to cost me $50 more in labor because I'm going to have to treat them for something, or they're going to fall apart on the pasture. Your feeder pigs is not the place where you want to save money, especially when you're getting started.